minute to go.
I were.
This man is on time.
He is right in it.
Oh, man, you expecting a quick meeting?
So you guys are aware of the rules for filibusters? If you wanted to filibuster, about how you do a filibuster. If you want to extend the meeting, extend the meeting.
Yeah. I am not familiar.
Aren't you?
I've watched certain things where they read out of...
Telephone books?
Yeah, they read telephone books, they read recipes.
Yeah. If it goes too short, we'll get a filibuster going. Can you imagine? And you got to sit there.
Everybody. I would like to call to order the Executive Committee meeting of Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission for March 1st, 2023, public hearing. And first on the agenda is a roll call.
Larry Leverins, Jackson Bogan. Here. Gary Schroeder.
Here.
Jerry Reynolds, Greg Jones. Here. Tom Murtaugh.
Present.
Kathy Parker.
Here.
Quorum present.
Next on the agenda, we have approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the February 1st, 2023 public hearing as submitted.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. New business.
Thank you. Subdivision petition S-5116, Meyer number 186 subdivision, must be continued to the March 15th, 2023 Area Plan Commission public hearing because the legal ad was not published and no sign was posted.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing, Jackson, it looks like we have a continuation.
I move to continue S-5116 Meyer number 186 subdivision, a replat of Lot 4 minor sketch to the March 15th, 2023 Area Plan Commission public hearing.
I second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
I move that the UZO amendment number 107 be placed on the March 15th, 2023 Area Plan Commission public hearing.
I second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Jackson.
I move that the following rezone petitions be placed on the March 15th, 2023 Area Plan Commission public hearing agenda. Z2876, Sears Solutions Cooperative, Inc., AA to I3, Z2877, David Keller I3 to GB, and Z2878, DBD, Activation Project, -PRF, CBW to PDNR.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Jackson.
I move the following petitions be placed on the March 22nd, 2023 Area Board of Zoning Appeals public hearing agenda. BZA 2096, Tomish Developers LLC, BZA 2097, Robert and Julia Kolik, and BZA 2098, John Schrader.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
I move regarding the following special exception request that this case will not adversely affect the comprehensive plan. BZA 2098, John Schrader.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
I move the following requests for variance from the Unified Zoning Ordinances are not requests for use variance prohibited from consideration by ordinance and statute. Case number 2023-07 to File Chevrolet, Inc., Case 2023-08 to File Chevrolet, Inc., and Case 2023-09, Manolo Renting, LLC.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
I move we approve the February 2023 budget report as submitted.
I second. Thank you. The budget report is included in the back of your packet. There's nothing noteworthy or outstanding, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Other business. Jackson will take that last motion.
I move we adjourn.
We're adjourned. So,
2 minutes.
2 minutes and we can start the next meeting. Okay.
20 minutes ago. I got an offer from the lawyer.
Do you think this is going to go till 6?
And we're going to call to order the Area Plan Commission of Tippecanoe County joint meeting of the Ordinance and Bylaws Committee. And first on the agenda is approval of the minutes from February 1st. Jackson, if we could get a motion to that.
Move we approve the minutes from the February 1st, 2023 meeting.
A second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Next, proposed amendment to the APC bylaws. David.
Thank you. I have the bylaws in front of you again for some housekeeping in addition to a proposed amendment to the bylaws. The Area Plan Commission bylaws, that is, you supported and approved a modification to the bylaws a couple months ago, and then we came back and you approved a new form, which was the notice letter that would be mailed to surrounding property owners. The primary difference there being that we changed the form to make it more informational and more useful to the layperson. And we also changed policy so that staff is in charge of putting that form together, creating the letter that gets mailed out, not the applicant, not the petitioner. So there are some corners of the bylaws where language was lurking that didn't recognize that staff now is in charge of sending that notice letter out, not the petitioner. Here's one with regards to interested parties in subdivision petitions. There was remnant language that talks about how the applicant is in charge of getting us the notice letter, the filled out notice letter. Another one involving vacation of plats, again, references to the applicant's responsibility to get the notice letter. It won't be their responsibility, it is staff's now. And then finally, with regards to mobile home parks, manufactured home communities, and recreational vehicle park hearings, the same language. It says that the applicant is responsible for putting that letter together, but they're not. So we're proposing to remove all of that language. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, which was mentioned last month at the APC hearing, which I'll talk about now, is the fact that all of these forms are referenced in the bylaws. They're not in the bylaws document themselves, but this list is included in the back of the bylaws document, which to staff's eyes implies it as an appendix, which, if we're being careful, suggests that none of these things should be changed except through a modification of the bylaws as dictated by the bylaws, which goes through the Area Plan Commission. I am requesting, ideally, that this will just be removed. I don't know the original reason that the forms were listed and included in the bylaws in this fashion. there's 25 of them. They're all subject to revision, and I think revision is not particularly uncommon. It's easier for us to be able to do what we need to do to revise forms as the need arises, rather than run everything through first the Ordinance Committee or the Bylaws Committee and then the Area Plan Commission. One thing that I'll note, and I'm sorry, were these passed out? So the forms you have in front of you, this packet includes most of the 25 forms up there. The first 4 pages, the one where it says rezoning, here's how, is just really a brochure that is old and needs to be updated and is not a form per se, but is also included up there. What I'm saying about the forms, that they don't need to be there, I think it goes double for simply a brochure. We have lots of brochures, and we want to be able to amend them, change them, make them better as the needs arise without having to go through an approval process to do that. So for sure, I think the brochure should be removed. For sure, with less emphasis on the sure, I think all of the rest of the forms should be removed. And so that's what I'm bringing here tonight. I did a quick search earlier today and then also last month to try to find other plan commissions where they have forms included in their bylaws, and I wasn't able to find a single one. It was kind of a broad search across the country. So I don't see that there's really great precedent for this, and I certainly don't see that there's great need for it. So that's my request, is that we just take this out of the bylaws so that we're free to revise and refine and fine-tune them as the need arises without having to go through this board. So 2 things. The first one was to get rid of that remnant language having to do with applicants' responsibilities. And then the second is the forms being in the bylaws. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a question. Were all those forms in there as like a checklist for when applicants had to do all of that stuff? Is that why?
Well, that page is taken straight from the bylaws.
Okay.
They're not, it's just a list of the forms. The forms aren't in the bylaws, but that list
Okay.
is. And no, a checklist for what an applicant has to do is, this is like every form we have, so you're never going to have to fill out every form for any application. It's just a list of all of our forms.
I guess I was just wondering what the purpose was in the first place.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Vicki. I just wanted to go back to the first issue. Did I understand you to say that now you're putting the letter together and you're mailing the letter out?
No, we don't mail it. We put the master letter together in addition to the mailing labels, and then we provide those to the petitioner. They make copies of the letter and then mail it to all of the persons on the label sheet.
Okay. And then advertising there, I know we made a change that we only have to advertise in one paper now.
Right, we made that change last time, and we're continuing to handle the advertising part.
Okay. Meaning you send the advertising to the...
Directly to the newspaper.
And then the petitioner pays for that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not changing that any, except that now it's a 21-day gap from notice to hearing rather than the 10-day
10
gap,
days.
which we took care of last time.
Very good. Thank you. Vicki?
I have a question in regards to this situation. So when I think of bylaws, I think it's how you run your company, how things get done. And so is this list included in there because it's so that it can be brought back to this group if there's a revision or a deletion or an addition, so that since we're supposed to be a representative to look at these forms, to say, does this make sense in different industries, what we're requiring? And if we take this out of there, then that would be left up to completely your staff to make those decisions. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, there wouldn't be any oversight from the Area Plan Commission as to how our forms look and how they read. And I don't know why they were originally put in there.
I think I might suggest that saying that there's no oversights not true.
That's true.
I think that if the commission ever wanted to change it, you change it. You're 100% in charge of it. I think it's an artifact. The question was, why is this the way it is? Well, I think it's an artifact of the way it was set up originally by Mr. Mucker back when APC became an entity. It was just put in there. I think it is unusual because as things change, just take technology, maybe electronic format will change so we're no longer having hard print and newspapers, any number of things. As things change, it would not at all be unusual for staff to be in charge of that. My suggestion would be, if it is acceptable, that they need to give it to you. So, hey, here's what we made changes of last week or last month. They show them to you. If you have a problem with it, you make a change. To me, that's a much more efficient, user-friendly system because we don't have changes made to these things very often at all. You could look at that as a good thing. I don't see that as a good thing because to me, evolution of the forms is almost always better for the public. So those are my thoughts. You always have oversight, and it seems to me that it's a question of when you have oversight and how you have oversight.
Okay, thank you. At some point, I want to get some public input on this. I think there's some people here, so if there's no more, we'll take a break in questions and.
Do you want to divide it into the two issues?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what,
Let's take the.
would you, the cleanup piece, first of all, I applaud you for going through the forms and updating. Thank you for that. Do we want a motion for the cleanup and the removal of the brochure from the bylaws? Because I think what we're going to be discussing is the potential removal of the forms from the bylaws.
I deal with two separate issues, if that was your question.
Yep.
Yeah, one motion for each, and we'll deal with them one, we'll get public input, and we'll move on to the next one, if that's what you're proposing.
Yep.
I like it, thank you.
I'll make a motion to remove the cleanup language from the bylaws as passed at the last meeting.
Second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I think I'll take public input on that, and that's the first issue. If anybody has anything to say on that issue. That's basically just cleaning up the language, what we did last month. So, hearing none. Questions from commission on that? So, looks like that's pretty good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion will carries, and then that goes to the Plan Commission for final approval. Next issue, Jackson, please.
I move that we remove the quote-unquote brochure from the bylaws. Pages 1, maybe I should be more specific, pages 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the packet currently labeled rezoning here's how.
Okay. So we're talking about, okay, 2, 3, 4. So what about the forms? When are we going to talk about it?
Forms are next.
Okay, so
So-
this is,
Yeah.
okay, got it, thank you. So a motion is second, and I think I understand that now. That's just so they can change the here's how.
It's the informative brochure as I understand it. Is that
Right.
accurate?
Very good. Any public comment on that? Questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries and will be recommended for approval. Next.
Are you wanting a motion on this, or are you wanting to hear public comment first?
Well, I think we just put it on the floor to discuss it, and we'll take our public comment, and then we'll vote on it.
I'll make a motion to remove forms from the bylaws.
Okay, so a motion and a second. We've had some discussion. Any public input on that?
Steve Schreckengas, 635 South Earl Avenue, Lafayette. Just, I guess there's so many forms, and I guess there's some unknowns as far as my part. What we just voted on is the notification period of 10 days to 21 days. That would not be a change in the form, would it?
I think
That
you're
was voted on.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
So that
It
would-
might
And-
reflect in the
and-
forms, but it's unrelated otherwise.
And
But
we
that-
didn't vote on the 10 to 21. That was voted on
We did that
last month.
That's right.
Those kind of changes would still need to come in front of the commission?
Yes.
Okay. Can any of the fees be changed on the forms without commission approval?
I wouldn't think so.
We're not looking to change the fee
I
schedule.
don't- No, you're not looking at, but can they change the fees without area plan approval?
I don't believe so.
I agree with you.
No.
You cannot change.
Okay. We're in
Correct.
It's got
agreement
to
on
be passed
that?
by a public body and public meeting.
Okay. If this passed, at the area plan meeting, is there a list of forms that you think immediately need to be changed? Or give us an example of a form that you think needs to be changed.
Well, I can give you this. We're changing every one of them. They've all been updated at various times over the past 3 decades. They're not uniform in terms of formatting, in terms of language. I think they've sort of suffered from not being refined over the years. So some of them materially we're changing them, some of them they're very minor refinements, but we're going over everything to bring it up to
And-
speed.
Refresh my memory, when was the last time we changed the forms?
Well, some of them were changed last year. The subdivision 4 reforms were changed last year. Some of them date back to 2002.
On the screen, you see the various amendment years that have taken place. It's all been done over the decades.
Is the intent then to try to do this, change all the forms within a relatively short period of time? Here again, I don't know what the harm would be if you're going to do all of them and they're going to be all done within 6 months, just to look at it and approve it again, just to have another set of eyes look over it, another opportunity for public comment. Because there won't be any opportunity for public comment when you change the forms, correct?
No, it's not a public process necessarily. I mean, it's unusual, it would be unusual to
Steve,
make
I'd
it a
just say,
public process.
Just direct your comments to us.
Oh,
and,
okay.
We'll,
Okay, all right.
so we don't get
I
into.
thought this was a little more. I would just, if this is something that's not routinely done, once you go through all the forms and want to make the changes, does it hurt to run it through this body one more time? We're talking about one meeting, probably not much time to go through
We
it,
can
but
discuss that
just a
last time.
consideration.
Yeah,
So,
we can discuss that. Any other public input? Questions or comments from the commission?
This is my own opinion. I think it should stay on there, and everybody's free to vote how they want.
That's kind of what we talked about last time.
So if there's significant changes that need to be made to every form, would it make some sense to make those changes now, as Mr. Schreckengast suggested, and keep them in the bylaws? And then after those changes are made, have the conversation about removing those from the bylaws so that any tweaks after that point could be made without having to come back through this process? Because at that point, I'm assuming it would be some simple wording that might be needed or something like that.
We could always talk about that, but one thing we're going to talk about next is see if we can combine bylaws and ordinance so we don't have to call special meetings. So it's just like an ordinance update, so it shouldn't be too cumbersome, but
Okay.
I see where you're going, so we don't have to call a special meeting, but that's another issue that we'll talk about.
David, once again, applaud you for cleaning up the forms and looking at them versus the new one that you presented last area plan, whenever it was. Much better, so thank you for that. I believe if we're going to do a cleanup on all forms, it might be beneficial to have another set of eyes besides staff take a look at them and vet some opinions from us. I'm not opposed to what Commissioner Murtaugh spoke about, but I'd kind of like to see them first versus, and I spoke to this last month as well, versus just saying, okay, yes, change them however we want. We don't know what those changes are. Do I think there's anything that's going to be terrible out of it? No, but I think it's prudent of us to do so. And I agree with Mr. Schroeder on the fact that we should probably do it from an ordinance if we can get everybody to agree that we should combine bylaws and ordinance to make those changes so that we can do it in one swoop.
That makes sense. And
In my
I think,
opinion.
I think that's maybe what Tom was suggesting. So that, I hadn't even thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. We can get over the big hurdle and then bring it up again once those are all set.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Would that, well, you're the boss.
No, I'm not the, yeah, okay, I'm the boss, yeah. That's scary.
I would like to ask the people in the room that spoke to this, does that make sense to you all? Yeah. Okay.
Comment that I have, not only a set of eyes from us, but I'd like to get public input on those forms. They're the people that are using them most of the time. If there's something they see that could be changed also, or something that may work better, I would like to hear that too. So my thought is an agreement too, that we just keep them in here and we'll try to smooth the process out in the future to just bring them to the ordinance committee. So any other comments?
Yeah, and then these are also going to be, this comes from Commissioner Brown last time, these are going to be available digitally, if I recall, and maybe fillable? Is that something that's coming soon? Did we speak about that, or am I dreaming?
That is our hope. I mean, they're all available now online. You're not able as a remote customer to submit it online. We're hoping to get to that. We're having conversations now with the IT department about developing a new database to allow for that. Our current database does not, so that's something in the future. We'll never totally get away from paper because some people just don't want to, but that's the hope, to move toward that.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the removal, and we've had some discussion that we didn't want to do that. So for those in favor that want to remove it, I'll call that vote. So all's in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion fails. So they will be in there. Next on the agenda.
Yeah, I wanted to take this opportunity to provide an update on where we are. I apologize for the kind of the language in there that I was going to hand out a staff report, but we've been, over the last month, last three and a half weeks or so, APC staff has been kind of going through the kind of the last draft that we had looked at and that we had presented to you, I guess, a few months back now. And our friends from Bagel were here. They submitted some comments, and so we've been kind of finessing the verbiage, the actual content of the two zones. We've sort of landed at least on two different zoning districts, the RT, residential townhouse, and then RTU, or residential townhouse urban, so that we're sort of reflecting the R1 and R1U variation, which is kind of what we were all about. So we've gotten some really good constructive feedback from staff that I think will simplify and streamline things a little bit. So we kind of want to go back to the well a little bit and finesse it, and then at the same time re-engage with the AOs as well as our development community. Specifically, we had enlisted KJG Architecture in the first draft of this thing to kind of run a design test, and it sort of passed their smell test, and that this is something they could work with. And so with these revisions, I kind of want to go through that exercise again, just so that we can at least have some surety on that end of things as well. So to that end, both KJG and Architecture and now T-Bird Design have agreed to assist us with a formal design test of both zones. So what I hope to do is to come back to you with a much more formal dog and pony show with a little more graphic capabilities here, so you can kind of see what these zones will make. I think a picture is a lot more effective than the verbiage. And then we can also have our friends in the development community be able to talk about what their experience with it was, and is this going to be a tool that will work? And then I think we'll have the package ready for you. And then what we've already done in advance is identified all of the sections of both the UZO and USO that will be impacted because 2 new zones are being dropped into the pond. There's a lot of ripple effects, signage requirements, parking, myriad of tables, all sorts of things. So we have identified every single section that will be impacted as a result of 2 new zones being added. So once the content of our ordinance is agreed to, then we'll know which sections we need to go right into and get the right content into the right place. So, because what will happen is there'll be a formal UZO and USO amendment coming to the APC, and it will be voluminous, because it's going to, like I said, from Chapter 1 through 6, there will be impacts. And so all the specific sections that would be changed as a result of the content would be there, and we would actually have the actual codified verbiage ready to go for an up or down vote. So we know where we need to go. We just want to make sure the content is rock solid. So I think definitely we'll need another month, maybe 2, depending on how our work with T-Bird and KJG goes. But we want to make sure we get this right, and it's not every day we create new zoning districts. So, but we're definitely well on our way, and I think the first draft that we did was a great first start, and so I think our friends on the development side will be anxious to work with us again. So I will keep you all posted. Like I said, it could be as early as next month, but it might be a month after. So I just beg your flexibility on that regard. But we are pursuing it vigilantly, and are excited to bring this new tool, hopefully, to the book soon. So I'll take any questions if you have any. Otherwise, we'll be back.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. New zone, I don't know, is there any public comment on the new zone? Here, I wouldn't think so. Anyway, citizens' comments. Now, I don't know if this is appropriate time, we talked about ordinance and bylaws, and I'm almost thinking if we just had the same people on both committees, you could just do what we did today. You just announce a joint meeting and address that you're addressing the bylaws, and we can just do it at this meeting. And that way we don't necessarily combine the committees, but we have the same membership. We're just addressing separate issues. Because I haven't read the bylaws, but I'm assuming the bylaw committee has authority to do things special.
It's not very well laid out. The committee structure's not particularly well laid out in the bylaws.
I think the executive committee is the only one that's...
Is the only one that's really
detailed
defined,
at all.
and that's okay, because that means you can make those decisions as you go forward. The ordinance committee speaks for itself until the APC goes, wait a minute, we don't think you need to do that. And so it's not a bad structure, because it allows you to change with the times and decide what you think is important. I have never seen any reason to have different membership of ordinance and bylaws. Is there any?
I see,
I just can't imagine why there's a reason for that. I think it's like everything else. It grew, and there was one that started, and then they, months or years later said, well, let's now have another committee, and they just happened to put different people on it. So I agree 100% that it can
Probably
be
easy
combined.
fix. Just same membership, and if you
I
want to
think so.
address a bylaw, you just do what you did today.
I think you're right.
Address that, so we can do that.
So it would remain as 2 committees? Why couldn't it just be the ordinance and bylaw committee and
All the time?
all the time?
Good.
Okay, just like, yeah,
We're up to APC.
okay.
And both of those committees are not voting on anything that is permanent, right? It all are recommendations that go to the full APC,
Right,
so we have no problems there.
right.
Okay. I'll make a motion to combine the ordinance and bylaw committees into one.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and Eric, what does combining mean?
Yeah, the membership, I think you want to touch that piece.
I think the president appoints members, and that's...
Yeah, I think it's traditionally been set up with different numbers. Well, am I correct on that? David, didn't they have one had one number and one had another number, so.
I don't recall for
How many
sure.
would you like on it? Let's pick the larger number, then you appoint.
One less than majority, so I think it would be 8 is the maximum you can have. Now, we're 17-member body, we don't have 8. So it's
How
8
many do we
members.
currently have on ordinance?
I think we have 8, 2, 4, 6, we got 6 here. Who's not here? Jerry Reynolds, well, it's Kevin.
Larry's
Oh, I'm
here.
sorry, we're seven.
Really?
We're seven, yeah, I apologize, it's right here in front of me. There's 7 on exec. Is there a different number on ordinance? Interestingly, we've never taken roll for ordinance committee.
I'm sorry. So we have 8 on ordinance.
So executive has 7, and then ordinance has 8. I don't know why you don't have 8 on the combined committee.
Just is statutory, I think. The membership, I thought was, is it in the bylaws, the membership makeup is dictated by which jurisdiction they come from, I
Because I
believe.
would think you'd want,
Pardon me?
I think you'd want different jurisdictions represented.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that I'm not up to speed on that, so that's a good point.
And that's typically been 7, and then Vicky's 8 here, okay.
Yeah.
So I think the question would be, for the ordinance, we just make the same members on the bylaws committee, and that's an appointment from the president.
I agree,
So
and that's, yeah,
we
you're
could
going with the
easily
bigger
do-
number, and that's what you need
Yeah,
to do.
8, so I think we're okay there.
I think you're fine.
Okay.
Do you need clarification in the motion?
I think the motion, tell me if I'm wrong, is that there will no longer be separate committees for ordinance and bylaws, but those 2 committees will be combined into one that'll be called the Ordinance and Bylaw Committee. It will be comprised of 8 members that will, well, we don't need to say this because the reality is appointed by the president. So I think that's the motion.
So moved?
We have a motion and a second that's been clarified.
Because isn't there 10 on ordinance based on these 2 was missing last time? No?
I don't think there's
Okay,
10.
maybe I'm looking at it
well,
I think
there's
Christina
people
has the
on
list.
bylaws that aren't on ordinance.
wrong. Bylaws has Bob Metzger and Mr. Dolan.
Okay,
Both not.
okay,
They would be bylaws.
okay. So technically, if we had 10 members here, it's probably, it's a majority of the plan commission, which you're not supposed to have, if my understanding is correct.
You can legally, but whether or not that's good structurally to have a committee that's already speaking for the majority is a little odd.
Okay.
If you see what I...
Yes,
Yeah, that's your
kind of what
point, I
we-
guess.
that's-
But legally, it's okay. It's just, I'm not sure that it's effective. It's
Okay.
almost a duplication of effort or something, because if you've already voted all unanimously, you've already done the work for the APC, which would just have to then rubber stamp what you've done, which is a little odd.
Okay, okay.
But we would be effectively removing 2 members from one of their committee responsibilities.
If we structured it for the remaining year and we changed it to a minimum of 8, could we have 10 this year and with the idea of putting 8 on at renewal in '24?
APC's free to structure it any way they want. You can do that, yeah. Again, there's no legal...
Or I'm happy to step down.
Oh, really? That's what you're angling for?
Motion denied.
We've been hoodwinked, Mr. President.
Motion to denied. It's utterly silent. Do whatever you want.
Some sort of
We'll think about that.
rotation.
We'll come back next month with some concrete ideas, but I think we'll combine and we'll figure out the membership by then. Any other discussion on that? So we do have a motion on the floor that we're going to, every month, we'll have a joint meeting of the ordinance and bylaw committees, and we'll figure out the membership.
Probably a
We have a
better motion
second.
at the moment. Yep.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments?
And again, this motion itself will be heard by the full APC.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Any other citizens' comments? Yes, Steve.
Steve Schrecken, yes, again. First of all, I want to commend you. I think this is a good idea to combine the 2. I also think this is a great format to get into the weeds a little bit on some issues that you don't have that opportunity at a full area planning.
Good point. bring
I'll
it.
give you an example. So
Okay.
we've talked, the builder development group has talked a lot about the merit and wisdom of sidewalk bonds in new subdivision. Primarily because it really, you have other checks and balances to make sure sidewalks put in. You can't get a certificate of occupancy until the public walk is installed. In West Lafayette, I believe, you even have to post a cashier's check if you don't have the sidewalk in because of weather or something like that. So I'd like to get that on the agenda to discuss, is it really accomplish anything? Is it added expense to the development cost?
Mhm.
Does it really, when was the last time you ever pulled a sidewalk bond or a letter of credit? So it adds some expense. It's time consuming to keep track of how many lots have sidewalks now, how many don't, to reduce the bond. So that would be something that the question is, how do you get a topic like that on the agenda?
Okay, I don't know, we'll find that answer.
But
So-
I would say you could bring it to any one of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, how do we get it on the agenda? We just make a motion here to put on the agenda? We ask?
It's generally the presiding officer who sets the agenda, and I think the staff is really being the conduit for that and say, hey, Mr. President, we got this, you want to put it on the agenda?
I mean,
that's
we
how it
have, at
generally
the end
works.
of every APC hearing, we have the, citizens' comments, grievances.
Yeah.
That's usually where somebody from the public can say, hey, you guys should talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the APC can say, good idea, send it to ordinance committee.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, as our structure has flowed, that's usually where citizens can interject and say, hey, we look into this. So you could follow that route, but there's nothing official that says you can't do it from here, you know.
So we really
It's
have
just-
two questions. How do you do it? And then we have an example. So,
Mhm.
so I hear how we do it is, we don't need a motion. We can just say that's reasonable to put on the agenda sometime to address.
Sure.
So.
I mean, to a certain extent, our citizens' comment section in ordinance committee serves a similar purpose.
Okay.
It's just an open-ended, anybody in the audience has something they want to talk about, and then if it rises to the occasion of an item,
Okay.
then so be it, then it becomes an
Can
item.
I ask a question to Mr. Schreck? So you think we have redundancy of measures that would prevent a developer from not putting in the sidewalks, and so, and
Barney Schuman's here, the largest developer in the.
I think your button's not on, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the sidewalk bond's a good example. If we've never, ever, here's what I would do. You can't get a certificate of occupancy. You get a temporary certificate of occupancy if by chance the sidewalk's not installed, and normally because of weather, or let's say the builder doesn't put it in. I think a better way is for the municipality to put it in themselves and put a lien on the property, just like you didn't pay your sewer bill or your water bill. Put a lien on the property. But it's if we've never, ever pulled a sidewalk bond and tried to collect or a letter of credit, it says something. And you don't have to put the sidewalk in until you build a house. So it's not a huge, when Don Lamb was here, Don would spend a lot of time, okay, you've put in 22% of the sidewalk, we can reduce the bond by $300. And quite frankly, after about 2 years, nobody keeps track of whether the sidewalk bond's current or not.
So let me talk about when they bond for public improvements, sidewalks are just one of the items, or are there other items?
Sidewalks usually separate, because the public improvements are the things you're going to dedicate to the city or county.
Okay.
A road,
Okay, but the sidewalk is a separate bond.
yes.
Okay.
It's a separate bond. You ask for bonding during the subdivision approval. It's just a little ticky-tack thing.
Okay.
And the other thing, to get on this agenda, do you really have to go sit through a 3-hour area plan meeting and then ask to be on the agenda? Can't I just send an email to you or to you and say, can we get on the agenda?
sure.
Well, yeah. you
I don't
probably
like
can.
looking at you, Gary, as much as I
Well, I
like
know you
looking
have to
at
look at me, though, Steve.
This is why I like this format, because it's a little more informal, obviously.
It is,
So,
but
but I would think there would be bring it up and you guys consider and say, no, this isn't something we want to talk about.
I think it's good. So it's not
Okay.
3 hours, you had about 45
Yeah,
minutes. Can you,
exactly.
or send somebody. So, okay. So we have a couple of questions there. It sounds like we put it, I think it seems reasonable to me. Any comments from the commission about at least addressing that? Putting it on the agenda, address and answer questions. So I'd say we put it on the agenda. Hearing none. Oh, Vicki.
Well, just to comment on that, for the general public that doesn't come to these, there should be something that directs them, that tells them how if they wanted to. I mean, if they're not normally coming to these meetings, I don't know if there's something on the website or if it says, reach out to your county official that's in your area or whatever it is so that it's clear to them, if I've never done that before, but then there's something going on, I mean, hopefully I'd reach out to my commissioner or whoever first, but it should be clear, I guess.
Clear, I understand. And I know Kathy would bring issues up because she's had public comment to her, and it would come forward that way, too. So, any comment from the staff on that, what we just discussed?
No, we've talked to Mr. Schreckengast, I think, twice about that, and I think it's a very reasonable thing to bring up. We've just said, get us a letter, and then we'll talk to the municipalities about it, but we just hadn't received that yet. So we're glad to get it on the agenda and have that conversation.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? No grievances allowed. Oh, Barney. Thank you.
Barney Schuman, 653 Appaloosa Trail, West Lafayette. So just to kind of back up on the sidewalk issue, in several subdivisions, we've sold lots to non-builders. When we do sell those lots, we have them sign an exclusive agreement that when the section is close to 90% done, that they have to install the public improvement. And if they fail to do so in our contract on that, we reserve the right to file lien on the property and install so that we don't have to continue to put that bond in place. So that's just something that we came up with about 5 or 6 years ago. So it's something that keeps us from having to continue that sidewalk bond in that section perpetually, which you don't want to walk through the mud, around there. It's just one lot that's never been built on. So that's how we have kind of fixed what was a minor problem once. So, but the City of Lafayette forced that particular person to put the improvement in because it was 99% done other than that one improvement. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other citizen comments? Anything from the commission? Hearing none, I think we'll take that last motion.
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn. Thank you.
Yes, you are. You're going to be early.